I have taken a 52-hour train ride from Chicago to California, a 46-hour train ride from Milwaukee to Portland, a 35-hour train ride from LA to Seattle, and many in between. So I am a pro, the train travel queen, if you will, at this point. And I have some tips to avoid boredom and figure out what the heck you are supposed to do on an overnight scenic train ride. Hello, welcome back to Sojournies. I am Sojourner. I almost forgot my name there. Anytime I post a train trip, someone is always going to ask me, am I bored on the train, or how do you avoid boredom? Right after they ask me how much the trains cost. And it makes sense because when you hear that you're on a train for 2.5 days or sleeping for 2 nights on the train, that does make you a little anxious, especially if you are on Amtrak trains that generally on the scenic routes do not have Wi-Fi. My first tip to avoid boredom on a train is to sleep. Yes, you heard correctly. I am good for taking a nap. I will take a nap anywhere. I'll take a nap at a party, on New York public transportation at one point. I'm built different. If you work a 9-to-5 and you live in the US, people want you being productive all the time, and train travel is one of the forms of travel where if you are not hopping on tours or sightseeing every minute of every day, you literally do not have to. So I highly recommend catching up on some much needed sleep, though I will say you don't want to miss the sights. So be sure to ask your Amtrak conductor or sleeper car attendant or anybody who works on the train when are the most scenic times. You can plan your naps accordingly. Getting rest on a train is also why I recommend booking a roomette instead of riding in coach. Now I know roomettes can be pretty pricey, especially if you are a solo traveler, but if you have the means and opportunity to book a roomette, I think they are a great alternative to coach because you get all your meals included and you also get a bed, which makes sleeping a whole lot easier on the train. My second thing to do as you are on a train ride and you want to avoid boredom is to read. Bring your Kindle or bring your physical books and sit down in the observation car or in your seat and just read as the train is going along. I read like 1 or 2 books on a train before, depending upon how long the scenic train ride was. So if you're an avid reader, I think a train ride is one of the best places to get some reading done because you don't have Wi-Fi, there is little to no data, so it's really hard to be distracted. Third activity I say you should do on a train is journal. Get that writing in. As a travel writer and blogger, obviously I have an affinity for writing, but if you're not someone who writes publicly, I highly recommend still bringing a journal to write about how you're feeling. This may be your first and maybe your only train ride, depending upon how you like it. And it'd be really cool for you to document how you're feeling while you're on the train. It gives you a lot of time for self-reflection, especially if you're like on the California Zephyr that is 52 hours or on the Empire Builder that is 46 hours. That's a lot of time when you're not sleeping or eating or in the observation car. So having a journal on hand can be a really good tool to fill that time. I feel like also I've made a lot of big life decisions when I've been on the train. Maybe you are journaling and decide it's time to quit your job. Maybe you break up with your boyfriend. I don't know. You never know what can happen on a train, but you would not know for sure if you don't bring a journal. So definitely bring one and a nice pen for your adventures. My fourth tip is for people who do want some media activity, even though there is no Wi-Fi at this moment when I'm currently filming on Amtrak trains, there is a loophole for you to watch your TV shows and your favorite movies, which means downloading them before you get on the train. It's an easy way to bring the entertainment with you. If you have a tablet, iPad, laptop, whatever device, you can download the movies and still watch them while you're on the train. I would just recommend bringing additional charger or a bigger outlet or power strip because there aren't that many outlets on Amtrak trains, and if you want to charge your phone, your laptop, your tablet, your camera, whatever, you want to make sure you're able to do all of that in a reasonable time frame because when you're in the roomettes, there's only one outlet and one plug for you to use. And if you're curious about which one I bring, I have this one by Mafaso. It's really great. I have it linked in my Amazon storefront, which I will put in the description box below with all of my other train travel essentials. But it is honestly such a great tool to have because it has multiple USB outlets and then it also has multiple plugs for you to charge your devices. So if you are someone who does need more entertainment, I recommend having one of these to charge it all. My next tip is one of the more obvious ones, which is to go and sit in the observation car. You are booking the scenic train ride for the scenic views. And if you are riding on Amtrak, the best place to get those views, if you're not in your roomette or you didn't even book a roomette and you book coach, is to sit in the observation car. Now on some routes you do need to get there a bit sooner than others. I know on the California Zephyr they made an announcement saying, hey, it's time to switch and get out of the observation car when you go through the Rocky Mountains, just to make sure other people on the train have access to it on that Denver to Sacramento route. However, the observation car is one of the highlights, if not the highlight, of a scenic train ride in the US. The whole reason why you booked the scenic train ride was for the views, so go sit back, relax, and enjoy them. And while you're sitting and enjoying your time in the observation car, don't be afraid to socialize. As someone who is a solo traveler, I always have really cool conversations with people who I meet on trains. I met a pair of best friends who only travels by train because one of them really isn't a fan of flying. I've met teachers who are retired and just traveling the US by train. You will meet a lot of older retired couples or families while you're on the train if you are a solo traveler. But everyone has a story and you never know who you're going to talk to. So I recommend being social. Always bring a deck of cards with you. I do this because it is a really cool way to meet new people and invite that kind of energy onto your scenic train ride. You can also use the snacks you bring as kind of an icebreaker. If you see somebody sitting next to you, ask them, hey, do you want some chips? I have some to share. Taking that first step can be the difference from having a completely silent train ride to having a more relaxed train ride with some conversations in between hanging out in your roomette, hanging out in the dining car, or relaxing in coach. And my last tip is to listen to podcasts and download them beforehand, as well as your music. As I mentioned earlier, you don't have Wi-Fi and you don't have much data. And so if you do want to listen to your podcast and listen to music, it's best to download all what you need before you go. And I also recommend bringing some noise canceling headphones, because depending upon what part of the route you're on, for example, if you are in the more scenic part of the train ride, then you may have more people in the observation car. You may want a bit more of silence as you're relaxing in the observation car, or you want to listen to your music and not hear other conversations. So I recommend buying some noise canceling headphones to balance out that experience too. My bonus kind of 8th tip is learn how to relax and do nothing. I always say that train travel has really helped me perfect the art of doing nothing, because there is not much you can do on a train. I think as someone who has been traveling for quite a bit, who's been hopping around, who I have done some incredibly ridiculous things while traveling that logistically was so much and put so much pressure on my schedule and pressure on my body, force myself to make those travel experiences happen, that it's really refreshing to have a scenic train travel experience where all you have to do is sit back, relax, and enjoy. I know some people vacation like that all the time, but the traveling Virgo in me just loves to overplan. And so train travel helps me reel that in and helps me relax. And so I hope that on your scenic train trip, you're able to perfect that art of doing nothing and know what it feels like to sit back, relax, and just enjoy the journey, quite literally, because you can't go anywhere. I hope that gave you some ideas on what you can do on an overnight scenic train ride. If you're looking for more, I do have a blog post on my website that goes more in depth about 17, I think, things you can do to avoid boredom on a scenic train ride. If you're looking for more ideas like packing word searches or doing Sudokus or crosswords or even coloring and coloring books, getting in tune with that child in you, I think is also a great thing to do when you're on a scenic train ride. So if you want to know more or get more ideas, I will link that blog post in the description box below. And thank you all so much for watching. As always, leave any questions you have about scenic train travel. Tell me what you do on scenic train rides. I'm always looking for cool stuff to do or to fill my time, and I would love to have your input. So drop me a comment below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye y'all, stay curious.